The vultures arrived first. They circled high against the dawn sky, black shapes riding thermals above the Arizona desert. Patient, waiting. They knew what the rising sun would reveal. Sister Abigail Harlow knelt in the dust beside a dying man, her habit torn at the shoulder, rosary beads clicking between her fingers. Blood spread across Marshall Evans's chest in a dark stain that grew with each shallow breath. His hand gripped on hers with surprising strength for a man so close to the end. "In the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit," she murmured, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. Three other bodies lay scattered near the overturned prison wagon. Marshall Bennett face down in the sand, a bullet through his back. Marshall Chen slumped against the wagon wheel, eyes staring at nothing. Marshall Reeves, the youngest at 24, sprawled where he'd fallen trying to draw his gun. Someone had carved initials into the wagon's wooden side with a knife. Elsa message. The desert dawn painted everything in shades of copper and blood. "Sister." Evans coughed, flecks of red on his lips. His eyes found something over her shoulder. "Don't let him get away." "Shh." Abigail pressed her free hand to his chest, feeling the sticky warmth. "Save your strength. Promise me." She glanced back. 20 feet away, sitting casually against a boulder, as if waiting for a stagecoach. Nathaniel Cade watched them with the detached curiosity of a man observing strangers at a train station. Manacles circled his wrists. His prison-issue shirt was dusty but unstained. Not a mark on him. His face held the kind of handsomeness that probably opened doors and softened hearts, refined features that belonged in a San Francisco drawing room, not shackled in the desert. "Sister," Nathaniel called, his voice pleasant, almost apologetic. "Marshall Evans has maybe 2 minutes. You should finish that prayer." Abigail's jaw clenched. She wanted to curse him, wanted to scream at his casual observation of a man's death. Instead, she bent close to Evans. "I promise." Evans tried to speak again, but only blood came. His grip weakened. The light left his eyes between one heartbeat and the next. Abigail completed the last rites in Latin, the words as familiar as breathing. She'd spoken them over too many men in her 6 years as prison chaplain. But never like this. Never in the open desert with the man she'd promised to guard, sitting free except for chains he could probably pick if he wanted. She closed Evans's eyes, rose to her feet. Dust and blood stained her habit. Nathaniel studied her with interest. "You handled that well. Most people fall apart when they see death up close." "I've seen death before." She crossed to him, the marshal's key ring in one hand, her rosary in the other. The keys felt heavier than they should. "I know." Nathaniel smiled, not unkind. "Your father, U.S. Marshal Thomas Harlow. The Dalton gang ambushed him outside Tombstone when you were 17. 5 bullets. Died slow." Abigail stopped. The morning sun cast his shadow long across the sand. "How do you know that?" "I make it my business to know people, sister, especially people who might hold my life in their hands." He shifted against the boulder chains clinking. "You could run, you know. Take one of those horses, ride east to the nearest town. Leave me here chained. My brother's gang will find me eventually, and you'd be long gone. No one would blame you." The nearest town was Santa Rosa, 40 miles through open desert. She'd die of thirst before she made it halfway. "I gave my word to see you stand trial in Prescott." Nathaniel's smile widened. "Then we have a problem, sister, because my brother Lucas just killed 4 federal marshals to free me. He's tracking us right now, and you?" He gestured to her empty hands. "You don't even have a gun." 3 questions planted themselves in her mind, like seeds in poisoned soil. How would an unarmed nun transport a dangerous prisoner across 160 miles of hostile territory? Who was this man who spoke of death with such casual charm, and would his brother's gang catch them before they reached Prescott? She suspected Nathaniel Cade wanted her to ask those questions, wanted her to feel the weight of her impossible situation. Instead, she knelt and began searching Marshall Evans's body. 3 days earlier, the Yuma Territorial Prison rose from the desert like a wound in the earth walls of adobe brick, baking under the September sun. Sister Abigail walked through the main gate with the easy familiarity of someone who'd made this journey twice weekly for 6 years. "Sister," the guard at the entrance nodded. "Warden's waiting for you in his office." That was unusual. Typically, she went straight to the chapel where prisoners came for counsel, confession, or simply conversation with someone who listened without judgment. Warden Pike rarely summoned her unless something significant had changed. She found him at his desk, 60 years of hard living etched into his face. He looked up when she entered, expression unreadable. "Sister Abigail, thank you for coming." "Of course, Warden. Is something wrong?" Pike gestured to a chair. She sat arranging her habit, waiting. He had the look of a man choosing his words carefully. "Got a special request. Federal prisoner needs transport to Prescott for trial. Bank robbery murder. 4 U.S. Marshals are escorting him 6-day journey. They've requested you come along as chaplain." Abigail frowned. "Why would they need a chaplain for transport?" "Because the prisoner asked for you specifically." Pike's jaw tightened. "Nathaniel Cade. You heard of him?" She hadn't. Pike pulled a file from his desk, flipped it open. "Robbed the Santa Fe Cattlemen's Bank in New Mexico. $40,000 in gold certificates. Killed 2 guards in the process. Led federal marshals on a 3-month chase through the territory before they caught him in Tucson. Took a shootout that wounded 3 lawmen to bring him down." Pike looked up. He's escaped custody twice before using that silver tongue of his. Talked a jailer's daughter into stealing keys. Convinced a judge's clerk he was being wrongly accused. And now he wants spiritual counsel. Abigail kept her voice neutral, but something stirred in her chest. Hope, perhaps. The possibility that even a man like this might seek redemption. Pike saw it in her eyes. His expression hardened. "Sister, I've been doing this 30 years. Men like Cade don't change. They find weaknesses and exploit them. Your faith is a beautiful thing, but don't let it make you stupid." The word stung. Abigail straightened. "Warden, I've counseled murderers, rapists, and thieves. I think I can handle 1 bank robber." Those men were already convicted, locked in cells. This one, Pike shook his head. This one's different. Educated, charming. The kind of man who makes you want it to believe him. That's what makes him dangerous. If he's genuinely seeking redemption, he's seeking an angle. Pike closed the file with finality. "But the marshals requested you, and I can't refuse a federal request. You leave tomorrow at dawn. 6 days to Prescott through the Mogollon Rim territory. Keep your wits about you, sister. And remember, charm is just another kind of weapon." The cell block smelled of stone and sweat and desperation. Abigail followed the guard down the narrow corridor, past cells holding men who'd given up on hope. Some called out to her. She acknowledged each with a nod, storing their faces for later visits. The guard stopped at the last cell. 15 minutes, sister." Nathaniel Cade stood at the bars. He didn't look like a killer. Tall, perhaps 6 feet, with dark hair and features that suggested education and breeding. His hands on the bars were clean, nails trimmed. His eyes held intelligence and something else. Sadness, maybe. Or the performance of sadness. Pike's warning echoed in her mind. "Sister Abigail." His voice matched his appearance. Cultured, warm. "Thank you for coming. I know my request was unusual." She remained standing, maintaining distance. "Mr. Cade, the warden says you want spiritual counseling." "I want the truth." He met her eyes with startling directness. "I've done terrible things, sister. I robbed that bank. I killed those guards. In 3 weeks, I'll hang for it. Before I die, I want to understand if someone like me can be forgiven. Not by a judge, not by a jury, by God." This was the moment that defined her calling, the reason she'd chosen the church over the life her father had envisioned for her. Abigail moved closer to the bars, close enough to see the flecks of gold in his brown eyes. "God forgives all who genuinely repent, even murderers. Even murderers." Nathaniel leaned against the bars. The chain connecting his ankle shackles scraped stone. "My mother was like you, believed everyone had good in them. She visited me in jail after my first arrest. Horse theft. I was 19, stupid, following my older brother into trouble like I always did." His voice softened. "She said, 'Nathaniel, you can still choose righteousness. It's not too late.' She died believing I would." A pause, heavy with unspoken weight. "I didn't." Abigail saw pain in his eyes. The kind that couldn't be faked, she thought. The kind that came from genuinely failing someone who loved you. She'd seen that same pain in the mirror after her father's death. "It's never too late," she said quietly. "Redemption is always possible for those who truly seek it." Nathaniel smiled, sad, grateful. I hope you're right, sister. The journey to Prescott is 6 days. Would you, would you continue these conversations with me? Help me make peace before the end. Every instinct she'd honed as a marshal's daughter screamed caution. Every lesson her father taught about reading men and recognizing cons. But the part of her that had chosen faith over fear, that had spent 6 years believing in the possibility of transformation, that part won. Yes, I'll come. Thank you. He stepped back from the bars. You're giving me something I haven't had in a long time, sister. Hope. As she left the cell block, she didn't see his smile fade. Didn't see him pull a small piece of metal from his sleeve, something he'd stolen from a guard weeks ago. Didn't see him test it against the lock on his ankle shackles, then hide it again. If she had, perhaps everything would have ended differently. Present day, Abigail found Marshall Evans's journal in his jacket pocket. A canteen half full hung from his belt. She took both. Marshall Bennett had dried beef wrapped in cloth enough for 2 days of rationed. The hunting knife at his hip had an 8-inch blade well maintained. She added it to her meager supplies. The marshal's guns were gone. Lucas Cade's gang had been thorough. 2 horses remained standing nervously 100 yards from the overturned wagon. The others had spooked during the attack and run. Abigail whistled softly. One horse, a sturdy bay mare, approached. The other, a gray gelding, kept its distance. Nathaniel watched her work with apparent interest. You're thinking tactically. I'm impressed. Most women of faith would be praying right now. I can pray and think at the same time. She checked the mare's saddle, still cinched, saddlebags intact but empty. Your father taught you that. U.S. Marshal Thomas Harlow, legendary lawman in these parts. Taught you to track, shoot, survive in country like this. Nathaniel's tone was conversational. Then the Dalton gang ambushed him when you were 17. You joined the church 6 months later, running from violence to faith. Abigail's hands stilled on the saddle. She turned slowly. How do you know that? Nathaniel's smile was gentle, almost apologetic. I make it my business to know people, sister. When I heard you'd be accompanying us to Prescott, I asked questions, read old newspapers. Your father was famous. His death made headlines from here to San Francisco. So you researched me. I researched everyone connected to my trial. Judges, prosecutors, witnesses, the marshals transporting me, and you. He shifted, his weight chains clinking. Your father taught you the wilderness, how to read tracks, how to find water, how to shoot. A pause. Then he died doing the job he loved, and you ran as far from that life as you could, to a place where violence and guns and death weren't supposed to follow. The observation landed like a physical blow. Abigail had spent 6 years trying to escape her father's shadow, trying to prove that faith could accomplish what violence never could. And here sat a man who'd seen through her in minutes. I wasn't running. I was called. Perhaps, Nathaniel's expression remained kind, or perhaps you're still your father's daughter and that terrifies you. Abigail gripped the hunting knife. The bone handle felt right in her palm, familiar despite 6 years of disuse. Her father had taught her to use a blade before she turned 12, taught her which organs to target, how to slash rather than stab, how to keep fighting even when afraid. She sheathed the knife at her belt. We're walking to Prescott, she said, ending the conversation. You stay manacled. We travel at night to avoid your brother's gang. If you try to escape, I'll chain you to a tree and send help from the next town. Nathaniel stood cooperatively. And if my brother finds us, she met his eyes. Then we'll see if I'm more my father's daughter than I care to admit. They walked. Abigail kept Nathaniel 20 feet ahead, connected by a length of rope she'd salvaged from the wagon and tied to his manacles. The Mogollon Rim Mountains rose to the north, a blue-gray wall of stone and pine that marked their route to Prescott. 160 miles through hostile territory, 6 days if everything went perfectly, longer if it didn't. The sun climbed higher, heat pressed down like a physical weight. Abigail rationed the water, allowing herself and Nathaniel each a mouthful every hour. By noon, they'd covered perhaps 8 miles. Her mind circled the same question. East to Santa Rosa or north to Prescott? Santa Rosa was closer, 40 miles through open desert. She could reach it in 2 days, maybe less if they pushed hard. Telegraph there. Law, backup, safety. But crossing open desert meant Lucas Cade's gang could spot them from miles away. No cover, no place to hide. And Santa Rosa wasn't where Nathaniel's trial waited. Taking him there meant the 4 dead marshals had died for nothing. North to Prescott meant mountains. Harder terrain but more cover. Streams for water, game for food if her father's lessons held. And it meant completing the mission Evans had died trying to finish. "You're debating routes." Nathaniel's voice pulled her from her thoughts. He'd stopped walking, turned to face her. The rope between them went taut. "Keep moving. I can help you know, with the decision you are trying to make. You're a prisoner, you want to escape. Why would I trust your advice?" Nathaniel considered this. The sun caught the angles of his face, casting shadows that made him look older than 35, tired. "Because, sister, if my brother catches us, he'll kill you and free me. I don't actually want that." Abigail stopped. "Why not?" "May I sit? My legs are tired." She nodded. They settled in the shade of a massive boulder, Nathaniel on one side, Abigail on the other, with the rope between them and her hand near the knife. "Lucas is my brother," Nathaniel said after a moment. "But he's brutal. When we planned that bank job, I wanted it quiet. In and out, no violence if possible. Lucas killed the guards for fun, watched them bleed, smiled while doing it." His jaw tightened. "I've lived under his shadow my whole life. He's older by 5 years, meaner by nature, and he's convinced I can't survive without him, that I'm weak." "And are you weak?" Nathaniel looked at his manacled hands. "Probably. I followed him into crime because I didn't know how to say no. Let him make decisions. Let him lead. If he rescues me now, I'll spend the rest of my life as his lieutenant, taking orders, watching him hurt people, being complicit in his violence because I'm too much a coward to stand against him." He met her eyes. "But if I stand trial, if I confess, if I accept my punishment and die by hanging," a sad smile, "I die on my own terms, free of him at last. Death by the state is my only escape from Lucas Cade." The words rang with truth, or the performance of truth. Abigail couldn't tell the difference, and that uncertainty gnawed at her. "You killed 2 men, she said. "I did." No hesitation, no attempt to soften it. "I pulled the trigger. They fell. They died. I'll answer for it." "Then why escape custody twice before?" Nathaniel looked away toward the mountains. "Cowardice. I wanted freedom more than redemption. Wanted to believe I could outrun what I'd done." He was quiet for a long moment. "But 6 months in Yuma clarifies things, gives you time to think, to remember the face of a bank guard's daughter crying in the courtroom, to understand that you're not the victim, you're the reason someone else became one." Abigail wanted desperately to believe him, wanted to see genuine repentance instead of manipulation. But Pike's warning echoed. "Charm is just another kind of weapon." "You said you wanted to help," she said, "with my decision." "The routes," Nathaniel nodded. "You're thinking Santa Rosa is safer, closer, but Lucas will expect that. He'll have men watching the eastern approaches. You'd walk right into them." He gestured north. "The mountains are harder, slower, but Lucas won't expect you to take a wounded woman and a chained prisoner through Mogollon Rim territory in September. The nights are already getting cold up there. First snows could come any day." "How do you know what your brother expects?" "Because I know how he thinks. We ran together for 15 years. Nathaniel's expression was unreadable. "If you want to reach Prescott alive, you go north, through the mountains. It's the last thing a sensible person would do, which means it's the first thing you should." The logic was sound. But was it honest advice or elaborate misdirection? They reached a fork in the trail an hour later. The eastern path was wide, well-traveled, disappearing into heat shimmer in empty desert. The northern path was narrow, rocky, climbing into pine-covered foothills. Abigail stood at the junction for a full minute. Then she turned north. "Why?" Nathaniel asked. Genuinely curious, it seemed. "Because 4 marshals died to bring you to trial. If I take you anywhere else, they died for nothing. I gave my word to Warden Pike." She met his eyes. "I keep my promises." Nathaniel nodded slowly. "You know, sister, I think you might be the most stubborn woman I've ever met, which is saying something. You have a lot of experience with stubborn women. My mother, she never gave up on me even when she should have." His smile was sad. I hope you're smarter than she was. Thunder rumbled in the distance. Storm clouds gathered over the mountains, dark and heavy with rain. The temperature was already dropping as the sun dipped toward the western horizon. Abigail checked the rope connecting them. Secure. She checked the knife at her belt. Ready. She checked the trail ahead, looking for signs of pursuit, and saw them. A quarter-mile back, barely visible through the pine trees. Movement. Dust rising. The unmistakable shape of riders. 5 of them. Lucas Cade's gang had found their trail. Run to run or hide? Nathaniel asked calmly, following her gaze. Abigail's heart hammered. Her father's voice echoed in memory. When you're outnumbered and outgunned, you don't fight fair. You use terrain. You use surprise. You survive. She gripped the knife. We climb. The first drops of rain began to fall as they left the trail and headed into the mountains. The storm hit an hour before dark. Rain came first in scattered drops, then in sheets that turned the mountain trail to mud. Thunder rolled across the peaks like artillery fire. Lightning split the sky, illuminating pine trees bent nearly double by wind. Abigail pulled Nathaniel off the trail into a cluster of boulders. Her habit clung to her skin, heavy with water. The rope connecting them had soaked through rough fibers, cutting into her palm. There, Nathaniel shouted over the wind, pointing. Hey, shallow, but it'll keep us dry. She saw it, a dark hollow in the rock face barely visible through the rain. She tested the rope's tension, making sure his manacles were secure, then nodded. They climbed. The rocks were slick. Abigail's boots slipped twice before she found purchase. Behind her, Nathaniel moved with surprising grace despite the chains. Prison hadn't made him soft. The cave was exactly as he'd described. Shallow, perhaps 15 feet deep, but protected from the wind. The floor was dry, except where rain blew in. No bear scat, no snake holes. Safe enough. Abigail collapsed against the back wall, breathing hard. Water dripped from her habit. Her fingers were numb from cold. Nathaniel settled near the cave mouth, chains clinking as he arranged himself. We need fire. You'll catch your death in those wet clothes. I'm fine. You're shivering. She was. Her teeth chattered despite efforts to still them. The temperature had dropped 20 degrees since sunset, and wet clothing and mountain cold could kill as surely as a bullet. There's no dry wood, she said. Inside your habit. The inner layer. Still dry. When she didn't answer, he continued, and there's deadfall at the back of the cave, protected from rain. I can build a fire if you undo these chains. No? Then you do it. I'll talk you through it. Abigail wanted to refuse, wanted to prove she didn't need help from a prisoner. But hypothermia didn't care about pride, and her father had taught her to recognize when stubbornness became suicide. She gathered the deadfall, built the fire the way he instructed, her hands shaking so badly she nearly dropped the flint 3 times. But the spark caught. The kindling smoldered, then flamed. Heat bloomed in the small space. Nathaniel stayed where he was, 10 feet from the fire manacles gleaming in the firelight. He watched the flames with an expression she couldn't read. Outside, the storm raged. Rain hammered the mountain. Somewhere distant, a tree cracked and fell. Can I ask you something, sister? Abigail didn't look at him. You're going to regardless. If God is all-knowing, he knew I'd become a killer before I was born. Knew I'd rob that bank. Knew I'd pull the trigger on those guards. He paused. So did I ever really have a choice? The theological question hung in the air between them, as present as the smoke from the fire. Free will is God's greatest gift, Abigail said. The answer came automatically, pulled from 6 years of counseling prisoners. Or his cruelest joke. Nathaniel shifted his weight. Think about it. He makes a man, gives him a violent brother, an absent father, poverty that gnaws like hunger. Then he watches that man make the only choices those circumstances allow and judges him for it. Where's the gift in that? Circumstances don't force choices, they test them. You chose to rob that bank. Did I? Nathaniel's voice was soft. Or did Lucas choose and I followed like I always have? Where's the line between my sin and my brother's influence? If a man's shaped by forces beyond his control, can he be held accountable for the shape he takes? Abigail had heard variations of this argument from dozens of prisoners. The circumstances made me. I had no choice. I'm a victim too. Usually she could parse the truth from the rationalization. But with Nathaniel exhausted and cold and uncertain, She found herself wondering. "You're not a victim," she said finally. "You're a man who made choices. Bad choices." "I know." The admission was quiet. "I'm not arguing for innocence, sister. I'm asking, was redemption ever possible? Or was I damned from the moment I was born into the wrong family, in the wrong place, with the wrong brother?" The question struck deeper than he probably intended. Abigail had asked herself similar things after her father's death. Was she destined to follow him into violence, or could faith truly change a person's fundamental nature? "Redemption is always possible," she said, but the words felt hollow, "for those who genuinely seek it." And how do you know if someone genuinely seeks it? How can you tell the difference between real repentance and a performance designed to exploit your hope? She had no answer. The fire crackled, rain drummed against stone, and Nathaniel Cade sat in chains asking questions that kept her awake at night. Eventually, exhaustion won. Abigail slept sitting up, her hand on the knife, trusting nothing but the rope that bound them together. She dreamed of her father. 16 years ago, keep your eyes on the ground, Abby, not the horizon. Young Abigail Harlow, 12 years old and gangly, knelt beside her father on the Arizona hardpan. Marshal Thomas Harlow pointed to marks in the dust that looked like nothing to her. "What am I seeing?" she asked. "Horse tracks, 3 of them. See how the left rear hoof on this one's got a chip? That's distinctive. Follow that track, you follow the horse. But there's hundreds of tracks here." Then you look at hundreds of tracks until you find the right one. Her father's hands settled on her shoulder. "Tracking's not about being smart, sweetheart. It's about being patient. The truth is always there if you're willing to look long enough." He helped her up. They were 20 miles outside Tombstone, chasing a horse thief who'd made the mistake of stealing from a rancher with connections to the territorial governor. "Papa, how do you know when a criminal's lying to you?" Thomas Harlow smiled. "That's a good question. Most lawmen will tell you they can just tell, that they've got an instinct for it. But the truth," he tapped his temple, "you never really know. Sometimes a man with a rope around his neck will say anything to slip it. Sometimes he'll tell the truth and you won't believe him because you expect lies. So how do you decide? You watch what they do, not what they say. Words are cheap. Actions cost something." He started walking, following the chipped hoof print. "And you ask yourself, can I afford to believe him, because mercy given to the wrong man doesn't just cost you. It costs everyone he hurts after." Young Abigail followed, memorizing every word. Her father was the wisest man she knew. A legend in territorial law enforcement. The kind of martial outlaws feared and honest people trusted. 3 years later, the Dalton gang would put 5 bullets in him during an ambush outside Prescott. He would die slowly, bleeding out in the desert, while his backup rode for help that arrived too late. And Abigail would learn that wisdom and skill wouldn't always save you from men who chose violence over mercy. Present day, morning, Abigail woke to gray dawn light and the smell of rain-washed pine. The storm had passed. The fire had burned to coals. Nathaniel was asleep, or appeared to be, his head resting against the cave wall. The manacles had rubbed his wrists raw. Blood crusted the metal edges. She should feel nothing about that. He was a murderer being transported to justice. But something in her chest twisted at the sight anyway. The rope between them was still secure. She checked it twice before allowing herself to relax. They needed to move. Lucas Cade's gang would resume tracking at first light, and staying in one place too long was suicide. But her muscles ached from yesterday's climb, and the thought of walking another 20 miles made her want to weep. Morning. Nathaniel's eyes open. "You snore." "I don't." "Like a freight train." He smiled, then winced as he shifted position. "How's your ankle?" She'd almost forgotten the twist she'd given. "It's scrambling up the rocks." Testing it now, pain flared, but not unbearably. "Fine. You're a terrible liar, sister." They ate the last of the dried beef for breakfast. Abigail rationed the water, giving them each a few swallows. By her calculation, they'd covered perhaps 30 miles since leaving the ambush site. 130 remained. They left the cave an hour after dawn. The storm had transformed the landscape. Streams that had been dry yesterday now ran full and fast. The trail had washed out in places, forcing them to pick their way around mudslides and fallen trees. Every step took twice as long as it should. By noon, they'd made perhaps 5 miles, and that's when they reached the Verde River. The river had been a trickle when Abigail's father had brought her through this territory years ago. A stream you could hop across without getting your boots wet. Not anymore. The storm had swollen it to a raging torrent 40 feet wide. Brown water churned over rocks carrying branches and debris. The sound was like constant thunder. Abigail stood on the bank staring at the impossible barrier. "We can't cross this." "Not here," Nathaniel agreed. He scanned upstream and down, then pointed north. 2 miles that way. Narrow gorge. There's an old rope bridge. A patchy trail. Lucas and I used it 3 years ago. "How do you know it's still there?" "I don't, but it's our only option unless you want to wait 2 days for the water to drop." 2 days they didn't have. Lucas's gang was maybe half a day behind, possibly less. Abigail made the decision. Lead the way. They hiked upstream, following a game trail that ran parallel to the river. The sound of rushing water drowned out conversation. Abigail kept one hand on the rope, the other near her knife, watching Nathaniel for any sign of deception. He'd been right about too many things. The route, the cave, now this bridge. Either he was genuinely trying to help, or he was leading her exactly where he wanted her to go. The gorge appeared around a bend, narrow, steep-walled, with the river compressed to a violent channel of white water. And spanning it, swaying in the wind, was a rope bridge, or what remained of one. Half the planks were missing. The ropes were frayed, rotted by weather and time. It looked like it would collapse if a bird landed on it, much less two people. "You said Lucas used this 3 years ago," Abigail said. "It was in better condition then." "How much better?" Nathaniel didn't answer. Abigail approached the bridge's anchor point. The ropes were tied around a massive boulder secured with knots that had pulled tight over years of tension. She tested one rope. It held, but fibers crumbled under her palm. Across the gorge, perhaps 60 feet away, she could see the trail continuing north toward Prescott. 60 feet, over a 40-foot drop, on a bridge that might disintegrate under their weight. "I can cross first," Nathaniel offered. "Test if it holds." Chained. "Undo the manacles. I give you my word I won't run." Abigail almost laughed. "Your word?" "Yes." "The word of a man who's escaped custody twice before." Nathaniel's jaw tightened. That was different. "How could Because I wasn't trying to earn redemption then. I was trying to save my skin." He met her eyes. "I'm not the same man I was 6 months ago, sister. Prison changes you. Facing death changes you." The words rang with conviction, but then everything he said rang with conviction. That was the problem. Abigail made her decision. "No, we cross together. If it breaks, we both fall." Nathaniel stared at her. "You don't trust me, but you'll bet both our lives on that bridge." "I trust God more than rope, and I trust you even less." She pulled the slack from the rope connecting them, shortening it to 10 feet. "You first. I'll follow. If the bridge starts to fail, I cut the rope and you fall alone." It was brutal logic, but her father had taught her that sometimes staying alive meant making brutal choices. Nathaniel stepped onto the bridge. The planks creaked under his weight. The whole structure swayed, groaning. He took another step. Another. The gorge yawned beneath him, rocks and white water 40 feet down. Abigail waited until he was 20 feet out, then followed. The bridge lurched. Her stomach dropped. The world tilted and spun. She grabbed the guide ropes, feeling them shift under her grip, fibers parting. "Don't look down," Nathaniel called back. "Eyes forward, small steps." She obeyed, one foot in front of the other. The planks beneath her feet were slick with moss and morning dew. Some were cracked. Some were missing entirely, forcing her to stretch across gaps that showed the river churning below. Halfway across a plank gave way. Abigail's foot plunged through. She pitched forward, arms windmilling. The rope connecting her to Nathaniel went taut. Nathaniel's weight acted as counterbalance. The sudden tension pulled him backward, but also kept her from falling through completely. He braced himself, manacled hands gripping the guide ropes. "I've got you," he said. "Pull yourself up." Abigail's heart hammered so hard she thought it would crack her ribs. The river roared below so close she could feel slowing spray on her face. Her leg dangled through the broken plank, the other struggling for purchase. She pulled, used the guide ropes, felt Nathaniel's weight holding her, anchoring her. Got her leg free, stood on the narrow plank beside the gap, breathing like she'd run a mile. Nathaniel watched her. "You okay?" She couldn't speak, could only nod. They finished the crossing in silence. When her feet touched solid ground on the far side, Abigail's legs nearly gave out. She sat heavily on a boulder, shaking. Nathaniel sat beside her as close as the rope allowed. "Thank you," she said finally. The words cost something to speak. "You're welcome. You could have let me fall. The rope would have broken. You'd be free." "I could have." Nathaniel looked at his manacled hands. "But then you'd be dead, and I'd still be Lucas's little brother running from consequences. Some prices aren't worth paying." Abigail studied his profile, searching for the lie, the performance, the manipulation, found only exhaustion and something that might be sincerity, or might be the best con she'd ever seen. "We need to keep moving," she said, standing. They climbed away from the gorge as the sun climbed toward noon. Behind them, the bridge swayed and creaked in the wind. It would probably fall before the year was out. They'd made it across with minutes to spare. Or Nathaniel had known exactly how much weight it could bear. Abigail didn't know which frightened her more. They made camp that evening in a cluster of high rocks that offered a view of the trail below. Abigail rationed the last of their water, giving them each a few swallows. Her lips were cracked, her throat raw. Tomorrow they'd need to find a stream or spring, or they'd be in serious trouble. She was arranging stones for a fire when she spotted movement below. Riders, 5 of them, moving slowly up the trail, studying the ground. Lucas Cade's gang. Abigail froze. Beside her, Nathaniel had seen them too. He watched in silence as his brother's gang approached the gorge, stopped to examine the bridge. One of them, a lean man with a weathered face, pointed across the gorge. Lucas Cade dismounted, a tall figure even from this distance, and walked to the bridge's edge. From their position, 300 feet above, Abigail couldn't hear the conversation. But she could see Lucas test the rope, see him shake his head, see him point upstream to where the gorge widened. They were going to look for another crossing. "They'll find one by morning," Nathaniel said quietly. "There's a ford 8 miles north, shallow enough for horses if you know where to look." "Do they know?" "Lucas does. I showed it to him." He was silent for a moment. "They're maybe 12 hours behind us now. By tomorrow night, they'll have closed the gap to 6. Abigail's chest tightened. They were being hunted by men on horseback while traveling on foot through mountain terrain. The mathematics of pursuit were simple and brutal. "Why does your brother want you free so badly?" she asked. "You said yourself you were going to hang. Why risk killing federal marshals to rescue a dead man?" Nathaniel was quiet for a long time. Below, Lucas's gang mounted up and headed north, disappearing around a bend in the trail. "Because of the gold," he said finally. "The 40,000 in certificates I stole. Lucas thinks it's buried in Mexico, thinks he needs me alive to tell him where. If I hang, the money's lost forever." "Is it in Mexico?" "No." Abigail turned to face him. "Where is it?" Nathaniel met her eyes. "If I tell you what happens, you recover it, return it. And I've lost my only leverage against Lucas. As long as he thinks I know something he needs, he'll keep me alive. The moment he knows the truth," he trailed off, "he'll kill you. And you're a witness now. You saw his face at the ambush. That makes you a liability." "I was a liability from the beginning." "Yes, but I convinced him to leave you alive." Nathaniel's voice dropped. "At the ambush, Lucas wanted to put a bullet in you. Make it quick. I told him no. Told him you were a nun, you wouldn't testify against him. That killing a woman of God would bring every lawman in the territory down on us. But he sent men after me anyway. After I was chained in the wagon and couldn't argue. I heard the gunshots. Thought," he closed his eyes, "I thought they'd killed you. When I saw you alive kneeling over Evans, I was relieved and terrified, because Lucas doesn't forgive disobedience. So you told them you'd kill yourself if they hurt me. Threatened to bite through my own wrists. Said I'd bleed out before telling them anything. Lucas needs that gold more than he needs revenge." Nathaniel opened his eyes. "It bought you time, but time runs out eventually." The revelation settled over her like a weight. Nathaniel had protected her, maybe out of genuine concern, maybe because he needed her to get him to trial, maybe because he was playing a long game she couldn't see. She wanted desperately to believe the first option. Her father's voice warned her about the other two. "The gold," she said. "Where is it really?" Nathaniel studied her face, seeming to measure something. Then he nodded, decision made. Canyon de los Muertos, Dead Man's Canyon, 30 miles northwest of here, just outside the Prescott territory line. There's an old Spanish mission ruin, a dried-up well. I buried it there 2 months before the capture. He paused. If I die, you can recover it. Return it to the bank. Maybe that counts for something in the next life. You're telling me this because you should know. If Lucas catches us, he'll torture you to make me talk. I won't let him hurt you, sister. But if something happens to me, the gold's location dies with me unless someone else knows. He looked away. And because maybe I want one person in this world to know I tried to do the right thing, even if it's too late to matter. Abigail didn't know what to say. The confession felt genuine. But then every confession from Nathaniel Cade felt genuine. That was precisely the problem. Below them, darkness gathered in the valleys. Stars emerged one by one overhead. The temperature dropped toward freezing. Abigail built a small fire in the shelter of the rocks, careful to keep the smoke low and dispersed. They couldn't risk Lucas's gang spotting it, but they also couldn't survive a mountain night without heat. She divided the last piece of dried beef, gave Nathaniel the larger portion. He noticed but didn't comment. They ate in silence, shared the final swallows of water, faced the reality that tomorrow they'd be traveling on empty bellies and parched throats while armed men hunted them. Sister, Nathaniel said as the fire burned to embers. Thank you. For what? For not giving up, for keeping your promise to those marshals, for treating me like a man instead of cargo. He was quiet for a moment. My mother would have liked you. She had that same stubborn belief that people could be better than they are. Past tense. She died 8 years ago, pneumonia. I was in a territorial jail in Santa Fe, couldn't get permission to attend the funeral. The warden said men like me didn't deserve that kind of mercy. His voice was flat, empty. He was probably right. Abigail thought of her own father's funeral, the long line of lawmen and citizens who'd come to pay respects, the governor himself speaking words she couldn't remember through the fog of grief. She'd been 17, orphaned, and drowning in the realization that violence had stolen the person she loved most. 6 months later, she joined the church, turned away from guns and law enforcement and everything her father had taught her, seeking something violence couldn't touch. Looking at Nathaniel Cade now, she wondered if she'd been naive to think such a thing existed. Get some rest, she said. We move at first light. She didn't sleep that night, just watched the stars wheel overhead and wondered if she was saving a man's soul or enabling a predator. By morning, she still didn't know. Day 3, they found the mining camp just before noon. It appeared without warning, hidden in a fold between 2 hills. A collection of buildings weathered gray by time and abandonment. The main structure was a cabin roof, partially collapsed but walls intact. Outbuildings held rusted equipment. A stone well stood in the center of the camp, its wooden bucket still hanging from a rope. Abigail approached cautiously, one hand on her knife. I know this place, Nathaniel said. Silver mine. Played out 5 years ago, owner abandoned it when the veins ran dry. You and Lucas. Used it as a hideout twice. There might be supplies inside if no one else has claimed it since. The cabin door hung open on one hinge. Abigail pushed it wide, letting light spill into the interior, and found treasure. Canned beans, peaches, condensed milk, hardtack, coffee, blankets stacked in a corner, a Bible on a rough-hewn table, and hanging on the wall, gleaming despite the dust, a Winchester rifle with a box of ammunition beside it. Abigail's hands trembled as she lifted the rifle, checked the action, found it functional, loaded. She turned to Nathaniel, who waited in the doorway, still connected by the rope. Try to escape now, she said. He raised his manacled hands slowly. Sister, I've had a dozen chances to run. I'm still here. It was true. He could have pushed her off that bridge, could have slipped away during the storm, could have called out to Lucas's gang when they passed below yesterday. He hadn't. Abigail lowered the rifle, heart hammering. Having a weapon changed everything. She was no longer helpless, no longer dependent entirely on wits and faith to survive. They spent an hour searching the cabin, found more food, a tin of tobacco, a harmonica, evidence that someone, probably the mine owner, had intended to return, but never did. Abigail checked the well, water clear and cold. She hauled up bucket after bucket, drinking it until her stomach hurt, refilling the canteen. washing the dust from her face and hands. That night they ate canned peaches and beans heated over a fire in the cabin's stone hearth. Real food. Hot food. The first proper meal since the ambush. Abigail felt almost human again. Nathaniel sat across from her, the Bible open on his lap. He'd been reading it for the past hour, lips moving silently over the words. "Find anything interesting?" she asked. Luke chapter 23, verses 39 through 43. The thief on the cross. Abigail knew the passage by heart. One of the two criminals crucified beside Jesus mocks him. The other recognizes who Jesus is, asks to be remembered in his kingdom. Jesus promises him paradise. "So even at the last moment redemption is possible?" Nathaniel asked. "Yes." "Then what's the point of living righteously?" His tone wasn't challenging, just genuinely curious. If a murderer can repent on the gallows and go to heaven, why not sin freely and repent later? What's the incentive for choosing good? It was a question theologians had debated for 2,000 years. Abigail had heard variations of it from countless prisoners seeking loopholes in divine mercy. "Because you can't trick God," she said. "He knows if your repentance is real." "But how do you know if it's real?" Nathaniel leaned forward. "That's the question that haunts me, sister. How can you tell the difference between a man genuinely seeking redemption and a con artist exploiting your hope? What if the con artist has even convinced himself? What if I believe my own repentance is real, but it's actually just fear of death dressed up as faith?" The question cut deeper than any blade, because it was the same question Abigail had been asking herself for 3 days. She had no answer. "That's the gamble of faith, isn't it?" Nathaniel continued. "You have to believe people can change, have to offer mercy without certainty it's deserved, because the moment you require proof of worthiness, you've stopped offering grace and started demanding payment." Outside, a horse whinnied. They both froze. Abigail grabbed the rifle, moved to the window. Through the gap in the wall, she saw them. Lucas Cade's gang, all 5 riders, surrounding the cabin. They'd been found. Lucas Cade's voice carried through the twilight, rough and mocking. "Nathaniel, I know you're in there. Come out and the nun lives. Make this difficult and I'll burn you both out." Abigail's breath caught. The rifle felt suddenly heavy in her hands. Nathaniel stood slowly, his face unreadable in the firelight. He met her eyes. "What do we do?" It was the first time he'd asked her. The first time he'd positioned her as a decision-maker instead of gently guiding toward conclusions he wanted. Abigail checked the rifle. 12 rounds, 5 men outside. She'd never shot a person in her life. "We survive," she said, and prepared to find out if her father's lessons could keep them alive. "Sister, you got 5 minutes to send my brother out, or we burn you alive." Lucas Cade's voice carried the casual certainty of a man who'd made good on such promises before. Outside the cabin, Abigail could see the gang spreading out, covering all approaches. Torches flickered in their hands. She pressed her back against the wall beside the window, rifle gripped tight. 12 rounds, 5 men, mathematics that didn't favor survival. "Give me the rifle," Nathaniel said quietly. "I can shoot them. You're a prisoner. I'm also the only one here who's actually killed someone." His manacled hands gestured toward the window. "You're a nun, sister. Have you ever fired a gun at a man?" The honest answer was no. She'd shot rabbits, targets, tin cans lined on fence posts. Her father had taught her to shoot straight, but he'd never taught her to shoot at a human being, to watch someone fall because you pulled the trigger. "I'll handle this," she said. Gunfire shattered the window. Glass exploded inward. Abigail dropped, covering her head. Bullets thunked into the cabin's log walls. The Bible on the table jumped, pages torn by passing rounds. She crawled to the other window, used the rifle barrel to knock out the remaining glass. Aimed at a shape moving near the well. Fired. The recoil slammed her shoulder. The shot went wide, kicking up dirt 5 feet from her target. The gang member Dutch, the pragmatic one, dove for cover. Another volley of shots. The cabin's door splintered. Kerosene smell drifted through the broken windows. They were going to burn them out. "Sister," Nathaniel's voice cut through the chaos. "Listen to me carefully. There's a root cellar under this cabin. Mining storage. Trapdoor under that rug by the hearth. We go down, they think we burned. We tunnel out after they leave." "How do you know about..." Lucas and I used this cabin 3 years ago. I know every inch. He met her eyes. Trust me or burn. Choose now. The word trust hung between them like smoke. 3 days of doubts and questions and searching for truth in a man who might be playing her from the beginning. But the cabin was filling with kerosene fumes. Lucas would light it any moment. Abigail made her choice. Move. She yanked the rug aside. The trap door was there exactly as Nathaniel said. Iron rings set in weathered wood. She pulled it open, revealing darkness and the smell of earth. Down, now. Nathaniel dropped through the opening, chains clanking. Abigail grabbed the rifle. The canteen followed him into the darkness just as orange light bloomed outside. The cabin was burning. The root cellar was smaller than a coffin, dirt walls pressing close on all sides. Above them, flames roared. Heat seeped through the floorboards. Smoke found the cracks drifting down in gray tendrils. There, Nathaniel pointed to a tunnel opening in the far wall barely 3 feet wide. Leads to the mine shaft. 200 yards. We crawl. They crawled. Nathaniel first, manacles scraping stone. Abigail behind, dragging the rifle. The tunnel was hand-dug by miners decades ago, crude and unstable. Dirt rained down as they moved. Once the ceiling groan settled, Abigail's breath caught, imagining tons of earth collapsing, burying them alive. But it held. In the darkness, Nathaniel spoke. Sister, can I confess something? Now, when else we might die down here. A pause, heavy breathing. Those bank guards I killed. One of them was named William Garrett. He had a daughter, Emma, 7 years old. I saw her at my trial, sitting in the front row crying. His voice cracked. I realized I'd made someone feel the way I felt when my father left. I destroyed a family the same way mine was destroyed. Abigail couldn't see his face in the absolute darkness, couldn't read his expression, could only hear the raw pain in his voice. That's when I understood, he continued. I'm not a victim of circumstances. I'm the circumstance that victimizes others. I'm the reason someone's daughter doesn't have a father. I'm the thing I hated most in the world. If you truly feel that, Abigail said quietly, then redemption is possible. You really believe that? I have to. If people can't change, then what's the point of anything? They emerged into a larger space. The old mine shaft mostly collapsed, but with an opening to the surface 50 feet ahead. Moonlight spilled through, painting everything silver. Behind them, muffled through tons of earth, Lucas's gang searched the burning cabin ruins. They'd escaped. For now. The morning after they emerged from the mine into dawn, the mountain spread before them, pine forests, distant peaks, morning mist rising from valleys like ghosts. They collapsed on a fallen log, exhausted beyond words. Nathaniel's wrists bled where manacles had rubbed raw. Abigail's hands wouldn't stop shaking, adrenaline aftermath. For 3 minutes, they just breathed. The mountain woke around them, birds calling, wind through pines. A stream somewhere nearby, water over stones. Nathaniel broke the silence. Thank you. Abigail didn't look at him. For what? For trusting me. In the cellar. You didn't have to. I didn't have a choice. Burn or believe you. There's always a choice, sister. He met her eyes. You chose to believe me. That's the first time anyone's done that in, I can't remember how long. Abigail studied him, searching for the lie, finding only exhaustion and something that might be genuine gratitude. Don't make me regret it, she said quietly. A pause. Then practical reality reasserted itself. Nathaniel looked at the eastern sky, gauging direction. They'll find the tunnel exit soon. We should move. Abigail nodded, stood, tested her blistered feet, winced, kept walking. But something had shifted between them in that darkness. A trust earned through fire and stone. Whether that trust was wisdom or folly, only the days ahead would tell. Day 4, no food, 1 canteen. Abigail's feet were blistered raw. Nathaniel's wrists bled, neither complained. They traveled through forests that grew thicker, more hostile. Every step was agony. How far to Prescott? Abigail asked as they rested. 60 miles, maybe less. Nathaniel studied the terrain. But sister, I need to tell you something. The gold. It's not 60 miles north, it's 30 miles northwest. Canyon de los Muertos. I remember. Lucas will figure out where we're going eventually. When he does, he'll head straight there. He met her eyes. If we keep going to Prescott, we might outrun him. I stand trial, hang it's over. But the gold stays buried forever. And if we go to the canyon, we recover it, return it. Maybe that counts for something. A pause. But Lucas will be waiting. It was a choice, safety or redemption. Abigail thought of her father, of the marshals, of a 7-year-old girl crying in a courtroom. We go to the canyon, she said. Nathaniel smiled, sad but genuine. Thank you. They changed direction, heading northwest toward Dead Man's Canyon. Day 5, the terrain grew brutal. Rocky slopes that tore clothing and skin. The sun hammered down. Abigail's ankle, twisted days ago, throbbed with each step. By midday, the pain became unbearable. Crossing a rocky slope, her ankle gave out. She fell, crying out. Nathaniel helped her to cover behind boulders. Can you walk? She tried, nearly fainted. No. Below them, maybe a mile back, dust rose. Riders, Lucas's gang. Sister, you have to unchain me. What? Give me the rifle. Let me lead them away. You hide here. I'll draw them off. Buy you time. You'll just run. Maybe. Nathaniel's eyes held something she'd never seen before. Certainty. Peace. Or maybe I save you the way I've been trying to save myself. By doing one good thing before I die. His eyes were intense. You've shown me redemption is possible. Let me prove I believe it. Abigail looked at him, searched his face for truth she could never truly know. I can't, she whispered. I'm sorry. I can't trust you. Nathaniel nodded slowly. I understand. He stood, still chained, waved his arms at the gang below. Lucas up here. What were you doing at saving you the only way you'll allow? The gang spotted him, started climbing. Nathaniel kissed Abigail's forehead, shocking gentle. May God forgive me for what I've done, and forgive you for what you couldn't do. He walked down toward the gang, manacled hands raised. Lucas reached him. They embraced, brothers reunited. Then Lucas punched Nathaniel. You idiot! Where's the nun? Gone, fell down the cliff. Check if you want, you'll find blood, not a body. Lucas scanned the rocks, couldn't spot Abigail, decided to believe it. Fine, where's the gold? I'll show you, but Lucas, no more killing. I'm tired. Lucas grinned. You've gone soft, brother. That nun got in your head. Don't worry, we'll fix that. They rode away. Abigail, alone injured, watched them disappear. Mission failed, Nathaniel gone. She didn't know if he'd betrayed her or saved her. Dark night of the soul, Abigail collapsed against rock. Ankle throbbing, half a canteen left. Was I a fool? She thought through every conversation. His sincerity, his questions, him saving her life, him giving himself up. Was any of it real? She opened Marshall Evans' journal, read his final entry. Transporting Nathaniel Cade to Prescott. Strangest prisoner I've ever met. Almost likable. Sister Abigail believes she can redeem him. I hope she's right, but I've seen too many good people destroyed by men like Cade, men who weaponize kindness against the kind. Evans was dead. He couldn't protect her. A memory surfaced. Her father's voice. Papa, how do you know when a criminal's lying? Sometimes you can't know. The question isn't, is he lying? The question is, can I afford to believe him? Because mercy given to the wrong man costs everyone he hurts after. What if he's telling the truth? Then he'll prove it with actions, not words. Nathaniel had acted, given himself up. But he'd also escaped. Was with Lucas now, getting the gold. What was his final act? Salvation or Con Abigail didn't know. And that was the answer. Faith meant trusting without proof. She'd chosen doubt, and now she'd never know if that doubt was wisdom or cowardice. She prayed. God, I tried to save him. Did I fail him, or did he fail me? No answer, just wind. She stood, tested her ankle agony, but she could walk. 2 choices. Limp to Prescott and give up, or go to the canyon and finish this. If he lied about redemption, she whispered, I'll bring him to justice himself. If he told the truth, I'll help him see it through. She started walking. Day 6, Canyon de los Muertos. Abigail limped through forest for 18 hours. Her ankle screamed, her vision blurred, but she kept walking. The canyon appeared at dawn, An old Spanish mission ruin, crumbling walls, a dried well, horses tied outside. Lucas's gang. Voices, arguing. She crept close, peered through a gap in stone. Lucas's gang had dug up a chest. Gold certificates spilled out, but Lucas held a gun to Nathaniel's head. You lied to me, Nathaniel. This ain't 40,000. This is 25. Where's the rest? I spent it. Bribes, lawyers, trying to escape before Yuma. You expect me to believe that? Dutch shoulder bandage spoke bitterly. Boss, he's been playing us from the start. Probably told that nun where the gold was. Insurance. Lucas considered. Did you, little brother? Nathaniel met his eyes. Yes, I told her everything. Lucas laughed. You stupid fool, you fell for that nun. Thought she'd save your soul. He pressed the gun to Nathaniel's temple. There's no saving you, brother. There never was. Nathaniel's response was calm, certain. You're right, there isn't, but at least I tried. That's more than you'll ever do. Lucas cocked the hammer. Any last words? Yeah, tell Sister Abigail. I'm sorry I couldn't be the man she believed I could be. Abigail's breath caught. She had the rifle. 12 rounds, 5 men. She could shoot Lucas, save Nathaniel. She could walk away, let justice happen. She could turn herself in, try to negotiate. Her father's voice, a good lawman knows when to shoot. Her vows, thou shalt not kill. Nathaniel's words, how can you tell if repentance is real? Abigail made her choice. She stood, stepped into the open. Rifle aimed at Lucas. Let him go. Lucas turned a gun still on Nathaniel. Well, well, the nun lives. Dutch, you're a terrible shot. I said let him go. Lucas grinned. You won't shoot me, sister. You're a woman of God. You don't kill. Abigail's hands trembled. He was right. She'd never killed anyone. Nathaniel's voice was urgent. Sister, run. Don't do this for me. Lucas's tone turned mocking. Listen to him, nun. Walk away. I'll even let you keep half the gold. Call it a finder's fee. Abigail lowered the rifle slightly, not surrendering, repositioning. Lucas, I'll make you a deal. Take the gold. Leave Nathaniel. Walk away. Why would I do that? Because he's your brother, and because I'm giving you a chance to choose mercy over murder, the same chance I gave him. Lucas laughed faded. You think I care about mercy? No, but I think you care about profit. The gold is here, take it. Nathaniel testifies against you, he hangs too. You both lose, but if you take the gold and run, you win. Lucas wavered. The gang watched. Dutch spoke up. Boss, she's right, we got the money, let's go. Lucas considered, then shot Nathaniel in the shoulder. Nathaniel fell screaming. That's for wasting my time, brother. Something snapped inside Abigail. She fired, not at Lucas, at the gold chest. Bullets ripped through certificates, paper shredded, money destroyed. No! Lucas lunged for the chest. The gang rushed to salvage ruined certificates. Chaos. Abigail ran to Nathaniel, dragged him behind cover near the old well. Lucas, enraged, charged after them, gun blazing. Abigail pushed Nathaniel behind the stone rim, returned fire. She aimed carefully, clipped Dutch's leg. He went down screaming, forced another gang member to retreat. But Lucas kept coming. Nathaniel, bleeding, grabbed her arm. Sister, the rifle, give it to me. No. I can end this. I was always going to end this. Please. She looked at him, blood spreading across his shoulder. He was dying anyway. Do you repent? She asked. Truly. I do. God help me, I do. She gave him the rifle. Nathaniel stood, stumbled into the open. Lucas stopped. Nathaniel, don't. I'm sorry, Lucas, for everything. For following you. For being your shadow. For never standing up to you. Nathaniel raised the rifle. This is me standing up. He fired. Not at Lucas. At the ground between them. Run, Lucas. Take what's left and run. I won't chase you anymore. Lucas stared. You're really choosing her over me. I'm choosing me for the first time in my life. Lucas hesitated, then turned, mounted his horse. As he did, he pivoted, gun aimed at Nathaniel's head. One final kill. If I can't have my brother, no one can. Time slowed. Abigail didn't think, didn't pray, didn't debate. Her father's voice. A good lawman knows when to shoot. She fired. The bullet hit Lucas's gun hand. He screamed, dropped the weapon. Blood streamed from his palm. He clutched it, staring at Abigail in shock. You shot me. Abigail, rifle still raised, voice steady. I won't kill you, Lucas, but I won't let you kill him either. That's the difference between justice and murder. Now run. Lucas, cradling his wounded hand, stumbled to his horse. His gang, seeing their leader bleeding the nun, armed and resolute, scattered. They disappeared into the canyon. Nathaniel, watching Abigail, smiled through his pain. Your father would be proud. Abigail lowered the rifle, hands trembling. I hope so. The truth revealed. Abigail knelt beside Nathaniel. His breathing was shallow. The shoulder wound bled heavily. Why didn't you shoot him? She asked. Because, Nathaniel coughed, because you showed me there's a difference between justice and revenge. I wanted revenge my whole life. It never made me free. You're dying. I know. He smiled weakly. But I'm dying having done one good thing. That counts, doesn't it? Abigail's tears fell. It counts. Sister, was I redeemed? Did I make it right? The central question. Her answer would define everything. Abigail looked at him. This man who'd manipulated and protected her, who'd lied and confessed, who'd run and sacrificed. I don't know, she said honestly. Only God knows. But you tried, and trying is all any of us can do. That's not a very satisfying answer. Faith rarely is. He laughed, then winced. Your father was right about you. You're stubborn, wise, and too good for this world. You never met my father. I read about him. In the newspapers. After the Dalton gang killed him, I wondered what kind of man inspires that much loyalty. What kind of daughter walks away from that legacy? He met her eyes. Now I know, the kind who believes broken people can be fixed. Can they? I hope so, because if they can't, he coughed blood. Then I wasted your time. His breathing stopped. Abigail held him as the sun rose over Dead Man's Canyon, painting the mission ruins gold. She'd never know if Nathaniel Cade was truly redeemed, but she knew he'd tried, and maybe that was enough. Epilogue. 3 weeks later. Prescott Courthouse. Abigail sat in the witness stand, her habit freshly laundered, the mountain dust finally washed away. The prosecutor stood. Sister Abigail, you're testifying that Nathaniel Cade died attempting to complete his journey to trial. Yes. And that Lucas Cade's gang killed him. Lucas Cade shot him. Yes. Were you present during the confrontation? I was. Did Nathaniel Cade attempt to escape at any point during your 6-day journey? The courtroom waited. This was her moment. She could say yes, paint him as the criminal everyone believed he was, make it simple, or she could tell a harder truth. No, Abigail said quietly. He did not attempt to escape. He tried to do the right thing in the end. The prosecutor nodded. Thank you, sister. Ito. Prescott Cemetery. Potter's Field. Abigail stood over an unmarked grave. Nathaniel Cade buried with other criminals. No headstone, no mourners, just her. She placed a small wooden cross she'd carved herself. No name, just a verse. Even the thief on the cross found mercy. Footsteps behind her. Warden Pike. You did good, sister. 4 marshals avenged. Prisoner delivered, even if in a coffin. Did I do good, Warden, or did I just survive? Pike considered. Maybe that's the same thing out here. She didn't answer. Pike walked away, leaving her alone with the dead. Abigail knelt, touched the cross, prayed. God, I don't know if Nathaniel Cade was redeemed. I don't know if I saved him or failed him. I don't know if faith without certainty is strength or foolishness. But I know this, I tried. He tried. And in the trying, maybe we both became a little more than we were. She stood, looked at the cross one last time, then walked toward the cemetery gate, toward Prescott, toward whatever came next. The sun was setting, long shadows stretched across the graves. Somewhere a church bell rang. Abigail Harlow had entered this journey believing faith could accomplish what violence never could. She left it understanding that sometimes faith required violence. Sometimes mercy demanded strength. Sometimes you had to become your father's daughter to honor what your faith taught. She was no longer naive about redemption. She knew evil existed, knew manipulation was real, but she also knew that trying to save someone, even when you failed, even when you'd never know if you succeeded, was holy work. And that was enough. Final image, the unmarked cross stood alone in Potter's Field. Wind moved through the cemetery carrying the scent of pine from the mountains. On the cross carved words, even the thief on the cross found mercy. Abigail's shadow walking away, small, determined, unbroken. The camera held on the grave as she disappeared into the distance. Then darkness.